Good morning, my brothers and sisters. I just want to start off by, first let me congratulate the health officials for putting together this program. I'm not going to say it's timely, but it's well deserving of our time. And I want to start off by just quoting from something which was sent to me by a Canadian month's ration a few days ago. Native month's ration, Dr. Isilmer Fergus Rowe, said of the 200 screened last year, 46.5% had high blood pressure and 28% diabetes. And I just want to go on to look at what happened in New Orleans. Let's forget about New York and the others, but New Orleans has more black people than New York on a per capita basis. So let's use New Orleans. In New Orleans, you had 22.5% with high blood pressure and 17.2% with diabetes. And that's comparing to the 46.5%. We're not necessarily saying it's statistically correct on the basis of the sample which was taken. But it basically indicates that the figures are alarming. Dorothea spoke about the $785 per night. We're not going to question the validity of that $785. Since I was a construction worker last, I only know to add up salaries at the end of the month. But you also have to include the cost of medication, and I noticed that that was not included as well, because you're not just dealing with those who went into the hospital, but you're also dealing with those who do get medication. And the cost of medication is exceedingly high. In terms of the national budget, it's horrendous. Loss of work time, the amount of time you have to spend going to the hospital, or the amount of time you have to spend relaxing because you're not feeling well. Loss of work time, which affects your national productivity. But I found another very interesting NCD, which he mentioned, but that's one which we encourage, and that's those going into the hospital for childbirth. So in terms of our population policy, we do encourage that part of it. Government has taken some very substantial decisions over the past year. I know that sometimes people say, well, why are you doing that? You're driving up the cost of living. But without any apology, and I speak on behalf of my colleagues, is that we have classified sodas in the same category as alcohol. And therefore, we make absolutely no apology for putting on the same consumption tax on these sodas as we're putting on alcoholic beverages. We have to protect our children. We have had discussions in relation to the school meals program, a diet or a menu which was established by the nutritionists at the Ministry of Health, and government will put in place that school meal program. Included in the school meal program, as I've seen it, is that there will be fruit included in every meal, and there will be no sodas. A lot of times people talk about the high cost of living in Montserrat. For me, the cost of living is high depending on what you want to eat. Eating in Montserrat could be very inexpensive. How many people have seen pears in Montserrat, avocado pears in Montserrat falling off the trees in recent days? Or people trying to get rid of avocado pears. Oh, you don't see any? We'll show you where you can get some. Breadfruit. Fruits. We always have at least one fruit in season every month. Guavas are coming back in. But we don't encourage our children to eat guavas, because we have to look at the American apple and the American products which we must import, and then people complain about the duty rates and consumption tax on these. Rubbish. We must encourage our children to eat the local fruits, because in terms of the dietary value, the tropical fruits do in fact and I'm not an expert here, but the iPad says so, is that they sit among the top 10 in terms of nutritional value of all the fruits. I don't want to do like some of the others and talk about when I was going to school. But when we look at the education plan, I found it rather interesting that people were saying it's illegal for children to walk beyond certain distances to get to and from school. We can't be encouraging that. Why should a child from Judy Peace have to get a bus to go down to Lookout for school and a bus to get back up? Or a child waiting at the hospital to get a bus to go to Lookout school? Absolute rubbish. Those children must be encouraged to walk to and from school. If they don't even walk to school, they should be encouraged to walk home from school, because they get exercise by doing that. So let's forget about this child abuse law, that children can walk beyond a certain distance. We are encouraging our children to be obese. Our children don't play at school anymore. Well, they play on the cell phones and on these other little gadgets. Yes, they can do that. When I have my grandchildren and I let them loose and they run and fall down, people say, "You're a bad grandfather." I'm saying, hang on a while, they're little boys. Boys will be boys, children will be children. Let them run and fall down. Let them climb trees. Let them do things that children are supposed to do. Yes, they will end up in hospital with a little broken arm or so forth, but they'll at least learn how to climb a tree. The average child in Montserrat can't climb a mango tree. That's sad. But every one of them know how to do these expensive games that we have in our houses. And then we complain about the cost of living. An iPhone that you see children have costs over $1,500. Some of the gadgets which they have cost a lot of money. We need to get our priorities right. I've indicated to the Minister for Sport that I will put together a team to play cricket against the under-13 cricket team as a fundraiser. But the people on my team, I must be the youngest person on that team. So in effect, you're trying to get the senior citizens, those of us who are in the category of senior citizens, to be in a position to come out and show the youngsters you can have fun in playing sports. When you look at football, a sport that has tremendous possibilities, you're basically begging children to come out and play football. You're begging children to come and play cricket. You're begging children to play sports of any type. The parents must allow the children to sweat. Perspiration is not a bad thing. Don't talk about sun too hot. Drink water. And you don't have to worry about buying the foreign water, which will also have a consumption tax the same as your sin taxes. Because you have good water in Montserrat, drink the local water. The net effect that we're looking here, and I want Mr. Romeo to understand that the statement here and what you're seeing here is not one-manism. Because as you recognize, each minister of government spoke to what they're doing. And therefore we work as a team. There are four of us here of the 6, and but 4 of the 5 who are currently on island. That's not one-manism. We have to look at the sedentary activities, not only of our children, but also of our adults. I am very happy to see that more and more people are walking. Sometimes I wonder if Little Bay was designed as a walking circuit, but I'm very, very happy to see that. Most afternoons I try to hustle to catch up to my walking partners so we can do a little 1-hour walk in the afternoon. Because this job is very stressful. But I want our ministers, all of us, to lead by example, by committing to losing some of the belly fat and using activities which will not destroy their knees and so forth, so you can go into other things. But my understanding, and I must compliment Honorable Chairman Wade for this as well, is that within the new tariff, Honorable Wade has fought to ensure that sporting equipment and exercise equipment have a very favorable rate of import duties, so we can encourage people to be using those bits and pieces of equipment. As a community, let us work together to encourage people to exercise more, to eat better, and better here don't mean eat expensive, because based on your menu, you can find that you have sufficient local produce, and thanks to the Ministry of Agriculture, that we can now supply most of our basic food needs in Montserrat, healthy and wholesome. Let us also say to the merchants, we really don't need so much of your sugar anymore. You don't have to drink your, I was going to a non-healthy drink, but I'm addicted to it sometimes. You don't have to drink your coffee with sugar. You don't have to have your tea with sugar in it. You can cut it down. And one of the things which we try to do, and look at the parents inside here, you don't have to identify it. Breast milk has no sugar, as far as I understand. And that's about the first thing the child gets. But as soon as you start preparing food for the child, what do? You dump some sugar and some salt in it, because it tastes good to you, so it tastes good for them. Now, just in closing off and going back to a personal experience, as long as I was providing drinks for my children, and I get cussed for it, there was absolutely no sugar in it, and no salt, because I didn't think they understood the difference between the drink without sugar and the drink without salt. Until other people got involved and say, okay, no, you're being a little abusive here, they need to get some sugar. But what we have to do is basically, let us encourage the children, cut back on the serving sizes. The plate don't have to be full. Cut back on the sugar content. Cut back on those things which we don't need to have, which will then cause problems later down. When we look, for example, at that little slither, I think it was 1%, thereabouts, of your young children, the ones under 13. That reminds me of the thought of the rat. When you see one rat, and you start killing the rat, you realize, but hold on a while, it's more than one. Let us tackle that issue now, because if we don't tackle it, you'll find that our children, when they grow up, will develop into very unhealthy adults, and the society cannot encourage them. I want to thank one and all for attending this function, and I hope Radio Montserrat is carrying it. Thank you very much. So Basil, I promised to be there this morning, I can't be there. Let us commit ourselves to a healthy lifestyle. I know that the alcohol consumption will go up in December. It doesn't have to. But we must drink, if we're drinking, to drink properly. But there's also a feeling that if you drink, you don't get worms. But that's another contentious idea. I have to provide justification for some of us.
Don't try.
But let us commit ourselves, not because of the dollar figure, because government and social security is increasing the retirement age. So by the time retirement age and social security benefits kick in at 65, you want to be able to live long enough after to collect as much of it as possible. So therefore, if you want to do that, you have to start off with a healthy lifestyle now. Thank you very much, and God bless.